Ba-da-da-da. All right. I am back on the podcast known as the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Thomas, back again for another edition of the Thomas Take, and I am very excited to get off to another start, another show, and talk about something that I haven't talked about in a while, and that is baseball, or a subject within the sport of baseball, I should say. And Major League Baseball just announced the Hall of Fame class. I got nothing wrong with the guys that made it. Chipper Jones, Jim Thome, Vlad Guerrero, and Trevor Hoffman, all well deserving of being in the Baseball Hall of Fame. There's no doubt about it. And to be quite honest with you, most people don't really know this due to the fact that I've talked about football and mixed martial arts so much on this podcast. Baseball is my favorite sport. It's been my favorite sport since I was a little kid. I've always enjoyed the game. I was very good at it. I'm not saying that in a braggadocious way, but I was. And I'm saying it in a way, I was very good at it because I loved it. And anytime you're great at something, it's because you love it. And I took to the game. I really love the game. I still do. I still play it. During the summertime, I really enjoy it. And I think that the sport is at a really, really great point right now. And I've said that for probably the last 3-4 years or so, based on the fact that it's true. It's true. I mean, there's a lot of young talent. There's a lot of great players. There's a lot of great stories in the game right now. And I think that it's just at an all-time high. I think that it's really only going to get better. So, it might not be at an all-time high, obviously. Nothing will top, the heyday back in the 50s and 60s. And, really it dominated for 40-some years. But football has definitely become the king. And, there's mixes of the NBA and, the UFC, MMA scene and NHL. Baseball, I'd still say, is one of the three major leagues in sports. I'd put it right up there with football, in my opinion. I'm not much of an NBA fan. I would say baseball and football are my two in terms of the major sports, and I do watch hockey as well. Obviously, being from Buffalo Sabres, hockey has been a part of my life since I was a little kid. So, but just in terms of the sport of baseball, I really enjoy it. And over the years, I've studied players, and obviously my dad has been a big help in that, telling me about certain players. Look up this guy. Growing up, he'd be like, hey, look up this guy. This guy was pretty good. Look up this guy. And I'd start to learn. And one of those guys, believe it or not, that I looked up was the subject matter of tonight's show. Fred McGriff, who has easily been slighted in terms of the Hall of Fame. If you guys are curious as far as where my opinion is on this, I'll say it right off the bat. He's been slighted. There is no doubt about it. First baseman played for 6 major league teams from 1986 to 2004. A power-hitting first baseman. He was a 5-time All-Star, led both leagues in home runs in separate years. The American League in 1989 and the National League in 1992. McGriff finished his career with 493 home runs, tied with Hall of Fame player Lou Gehrig, and only 7 homers away from joining the 500 home run club. Obviously, he won a World Series title as a first baseman with the Braves in '95, and he currently works in the Atlanta Braves front office as a special assistant to baseball operations. One of the best nicknames in baseball, Crime Dog, which was coined by Chris Berman. It's a play on McGriff, the cartoon character. So I think that, I can really go to a tweet that I saw today that just shocked me. And it was a tweet from Kenny Lofton, who was one of the best baseball players of his era as well. Kenny Lofton tweeted something that I thought was very interesting. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Comparing Fred McGriff to another player. Let me see here. And that player is Jeff Bagwell, who was just elected into the Hall of Fame, I believe, last year. So, let's see here. might actually have screenshot it, so let's just see here. I did not. What the hell? Thought I did. So let's find it, Kenny. Let's find it. Kenny Lofton, obviously, long-time MLB great. He said, okay, guys, explain this. Hits, Bagwell, 2,314. McGriff, 2,490. Home runs, Bagwell, 449. McGriff, 493. RBIs, Bagwell, 1,529. McGriff, 1,550. Postseason meaning playoffs. For those of you that don't know the term playoffs in baseball, it is postseason. Bagwell, 226/364/321 in terms of his hitting numbers, batting average, on-base percentage, and the final OBPS. Probably saying that wrong, but my head is just pounding right now. 303, 385, and 532. Hall of Famer Bags inducted 7th year. You have 10 years on the ballot. 10 years on the ballot in the Pro Baseball Hall of Fame, the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. 10 years on the ballot, and if you do not make it in a 10-year span, you're out. You're done. Which, I don't know if I like that. I really don't. Bags inducted in his 7th year, 86.2%. McGriff, 9th year on the ballot, 14.1%. That is shocking. This year, I believe, they said it was 23%, but according to Kenny Lofton, it's 14%. Regardless, if it's 14 or 23, that's downright pathetic and disgusting. The fact that this guy played in the major leagues for 19 seasons, 86 to 2004, and played very well. The guys that are in the Hall of Fame that were on those Atlanta Braves teams, guys like John Smoltz, Tom Glavine, Greg Maddux, those guys, those core three pitchers, the players that are Chipper Jones, they allude to the fact that they would have not won the World Series without Fred McGriff. So why is this guy not in it? It just doesn't make much sense to me. And furthermore, knowing that he has this uphill climb, knowing that there's other guys that have been in the running for the Hall of Fame, guys like Edgar Martinez, who is arguably one of the greatest designated hitters of all time, he got snubbed this year. And Mariano Rivera is going to be in the Hall of Fame next season, first ballot, which that is understandable. But you need 75% or more to get in. And Fred McGriff, in his 9th year on the ballot, gets 14%. That is a bad sign because he's got 1 year left, and he's got this uphill climb to net himself 61% left of the vote. He's going to jump up 61%. That's highly unlikely that is going to happen. So we can kind of chalk it up now and say to ourselves that Fred McGriff might never make the Hall of Fame due to, the facts. I think that's a shame. Obviously, he's a player that I've watched a lot of tape on and stuff like that from his heyday. And he had a lot of great years in the major leagues. He did a lot of great things. A resume like that, just the brief resume that I gave you, is more than enough. So let me look at his statistics year by year, and we'll go from there. His statistics here. Fred McGriff, man, this guy's getting the shit end of the stick. It's a fact. I mean, it's just, how do you explain it? I don't know what would make this guy, in the eyes of these quote-unquote baseball writers who have been contributing to the sport for many years, what would make these guys think this is not worth it? Let me see here. Home run totals. 20, 34, 36, 35, 31, 35, 37, 18, 19, 34, 27, 28, 22, 19, 32, 27-31, 19-12, 30-13, and 2. Had a 30 home run season with the 2002 Chicago Cubs at age 38. Had a 31 home run season with the Toronto Blue Jays in 2001. Actually, not with the Toronto Blue Jays, I'm sorry. He was traded that year from the Blue Jays to the Devil Rays to the Cubs. So, yeah, I read that wrong. Left Tampa Bay in 2000, was traded in 2001, was traded to the Cubs. And then I wonder what the Devil Rays thought when Fred McGriff gets traded. And he has 42 home runs in a year and a half, according to this. 2001 he had 12, well, 2 seasons. 2001 he had 12, 2002 he had 30, 144 RBIs, 42 home runs, 144 RBIs, 37, 38. His batting average 282, 273 in those 2 years. I mean, come on. Come on. Career batting average 284. Wins above replacement 52. 95 World Series champion, obviously, as I alluded to earlier, with the Braves. 3-time Silver Slugger. Silver Slugger, oh my God. Drafted by the Yankees. Wow. They made a mistake. That's music to my ears. Everybody knows that. But it makes me think to myself, being that I've been a baseball fan for my entire life, I know obviously the steroid era and stuff like that, but it makes me think to myself, is there a reason why Fred McGriff didn't make it? The fact of the matter is, those numbers are Hall of Fame numbers. There's no doubt about it. But the fact of the matter is, he played in an era where guys had better numbers than that were using performance-enhancing drugs. So somehow, some way, it is almost as if Fred McGriff has suffered in terms of his Hall of Fame career because of the fact that he is in this just purgatory of players that had better numbers than him, but did use. We know who those guys are. There's also players that have been stuck on the ballots for almost a decade that actually belong in the Hall of Fame. I think the voting process for the Hall of Fame needs to change. I would change it to 60% or 50%. I know there's a heck of a lot more baseball players in existence than there are football players, and there's certain rules and things, and the game is measured differently. It's 2 different sports, but I think there should be at least 8 Hall of Famers in baseball per season. And I go back, this rule, realistically, there could have only been 3 baseball Hall of Famers in this year's Hall of Fame class. Had a couple more votes gone the other way for not Trevor Hoffman or Edgar Martinez, but for another player. And it would have swayed the votes, dropped those numbers down, propped up the numbers of the guys below them a little bit more, just based on statistics and percentages and averages and things like that. So I'm fascinated by this. I'm fascinated by the fact that Fred McGriff played from 1986 to 2004, and had the numbers that he had, and is still not in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and probably never will be. I think you're a Hall of Famer, Fred. I hope that things turn around for you. I hope that you can get in the Hall of Fame. You deserve it. You belong. And as those guys said, 1995, the Atlanta Braves, would they have won the World Series if Fred McGriff was not manning the first base line for that team or towing the batter's box? Highly, highly debatable. Highly debatable. So that is that. Fred McGriff, is he a Hall of Famer? Yes. I'm Ryan Thomas. You just tuned into the Thomas Take Sports Podcast live on Grandstand Sports Network, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Follow me at Thomas Take over on Twitter. Take care, everybody.